Today we're going to talk about the month of Tammuz and the 3 weeks that we just began. So, little historical background here. Today is the 17th day of Tammuz, the Jewish month of Tammuz. This is the same day when the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the enemies, which eventually led them to reach the temple and to set the temple on fire on the 9th of 3 weeks later. The first and second temple were actually burned on the same exact day, the 9th of Av. So it's kind of like a very solemn period of mourning. There's certain restrictions that happen during this period. But I want to talk about something very fascinating that the Previous Rebbe taught us in 1991. An amazing insight into the period we find ourselves now, the 3 weeks, and in general, the month of Tammuz. And that is as follows. If you were to choose a month of redemption in the Jewish calendar, everyone was going to say the month of Nisan. Is the month of redemption. The month of Nisan is the month that we celebrate the Passover holiday, the first redemption of the Jews' exodus out of Egypt. That is coined by our sages the month of redemption. The most furthest month away from that month would probably be the month of Tammuz and the month of Av. It all began in the month of Tammuz. This is very far away from any time of joy and redemption and Geulah. But the Rebbe teaches us that this was the case up until very recent history. Up until 1927. There was never an event of happiness, of redemption in the month of Tammuz until 1927. What happened? As we said this in a previous video, this was referring to the release date of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson was put into prison in Soviet Russia for doing the greatest crime of spreading Judaism. And he was released out of those prisons in 1927, completely freed. But he said that this is not a personal freedom for me alone. This is a freedom for every single Jew. And the Rebbe explained that this was a breakthrough. This is opening the channel of the ultimate complete redemption of Jews coming out of exile. All from this event that happened in 1927. It was a stage in the ultimate redemption. So as a result of this redemption that happened in the month of Tammuz, the Rebbe began to call this month, the Tammuz month, the month of redemption. Not just the month of Nisan, but the month of Tammuz is also a month of redemption. He writes this in many letters and the talks. He coins this month a month of redemption. Just completely shocking, because normally the month of Tammuz is associated with only negative events. Here, the Rebbe is saying this is a month of redemption. And in a fascinating way, the Rebbe explained to us, this is a talk from 1991, that as we near closer and closer to the final complete redemption, we are going to begin to start feeling the hidden goodness that's associated with Geulah, with redemption. We explained in previous videos that exile and redemption, they may seem separate, totally independent things, but really they're one and the same. When you look at exile and all the ramifications of exile, the suffering, the pain, the catastrophes throughout this exile, that's only one layer of exile. That's the superficial, the surface layer. But underneath this, there's really infinite blessings, infinite goodness and greatness that is at play. It's concealed, but as we get closer to Geulah, as we get closer to the final redemption, those hidden goodness, the blessings that are embedded with under the surface layer of exile are going to start to blossom. They're going to start to come out to the surface, become more apparent, become more felt and tangible. They're not going to be concealed anymore. So when we complete this exile process, there is no more negative events. There is no more suffering, no more hatred, no more death, no more anti-Semitism. That's all going to be in the past. They're going to expire. What we're going to experience with the ultimate redemption is completely only revealed good. And in an infinite way, in all matters of our life, complete goodness. So essentially, even though exile looks terrible, it's full of negative, but really underneath that surface, it's full of complete greatness, the greatness of the redemption. It's a process that must happen to get there. But it's not that exile is one negative thing and the Geulah redemption is a separate thing. One just comes after the other. No, it's really one and the same. And because we're nearing closer to the final redemption, we are going to begin to feel and see those hidden blessings come to the surface. And in 1927, we saw this start to happen. We are already feeling the messianic mode that this month is going to be when Moshiach fully comes. So instead of Tammuz being just a month associated with negative aspects, we are already starting to feel and taste what it's going to be like in the days of Moshiach and the Messiah. The Rambam teaches us that the greatest holidays that are going to be in the times of Moshiach are in fact going to be the fast days, which one may think the lowest days of the Jewish calendar, the fast days, the saddest days, will now be turned when Moshiach comes to the highest, the greatest days of celebration. We're going to feast and celebrate greater than any other holiday that we know of. It's just now those days are associated with negativity. That's surface layer. But really underneath that is the greatest blessings. And we're starting to feel that already. And so because we already have a redemption in the month of Tammuz, the Rebbe coined it already the whole month of redemption. It's also interesting thing the Rebbe points out is that out of all months, God is orchestrating that this redemption, a day of celebration and happiness, should fall out in this month of Tammuz. But specifically prior to the start of the 3-week period, which is associated with mourning and destruction and exile. If this is a day of redemption, the release of the previous Rebbe from prison, why did God orchestrate that it should come prior to the exile period? Redemption comes after exile, not prior to exile. So the Rebbe explained that, yes, in the timeline of things, yes, first exile, and then as a result of exile, you have redemption. But in terms of the purpose and the goal of exile, God is showing us at the very outset, even before we enter the period of the exile period, even before the 3 weeks begin, we have a day of redemption, the 12th and 13th day of Tammuz. God is showing us that exile is not just exile for itself, but it's a means to get to redemption. The whole point of exile is not just destruction. It's really to reconstruct greater and bigger from the exile. That's why God put the day of redemption earlier in the month of Tammuz to show us that this is really, in fact, the whole goal of this whole period is really redemption. And now we're starting to see it surface. And so because we're living in Messianic days and we're beginning to start feeling the hidden blessings of redemption, they're coming to the surface now. We should continue our efforts and start telling people we are now in the month of redemption. This is now a month of redemption. We are not going to treat this month the way it's been for many, many hundreds and thousands of years. We are now in a different time. We're in a different generation.